This video that I'm about to show you, I think, reflects a deeper problem in our politics and especially our media.
Let's talk about President Biden a little bit. Is there anything he's done that you can point to as being good for America?
I mean, I hate to say it, don't judge me for this, but I kind of like the whole student loan thing. But again, everybody's gonna pay for everybody's student loans, so. Honestly, no, I can't think of anything that he's done for me, honestly.
Here you have somebody who acknowledges that student debt cancellation would benefit him, but he prefaces it with, "Don't judge me." He's been conditioned to think that a policy which he acknowledges would benefit him and other people is bad. And you can assume, based on his hat, where he's at, a Trump rally, and his position, that he's probably in opposition to many social safety net programs or many policies that benefit working Americans. And that's sad. It's honestly sad, because those same types of people who oppose student debt cancellation because of partisan politics also usually oppose things like Medicare for All, which we know would benefit everyone in this country. The reality is the right, and especially the right-wing media ecosystem, has brainwashed millions of people. And sure, there are plenty of purely hateful, spiteful, whatever ism you want to add, people in the MAGA movement, but I think a lot of them are just looking for help. They can't trust the established leaders in Washington, so they turn to Trump, the outsider, someone who promises to be a right-wing populist. Now, I think we know that's not true, and that's not who he is or what he will do, but they're coming to this position out of desperation. And while the solutions are right there, student debt cancellation, Medicare for all, increased wages for workers, these right-wing populists will exploit their very real suffering and then not deliver. And it turns people off and makes them cynical in the long run. But how did we get to that point to begin with? We have to go back to the media ecosystem. There's this big conversation around how liberals need to create a liberal Joe Rogan to compete with the right-wing media ecosystem. I think they're missing the point.
When people, if there are such people who say that they need a liberal Joe Rogan, what do you think they actually mean when they say that?
Well, I think the short answer is they do need a new Joe Rogan. The question is, what does that look like? And I don't know if it's you can actually create it. There apparently a lot of Republicans were creating some of these podcasters and so on. So now the mainstream media has changed quite a bit. And I don't know if it's so much about who the person is or if there is a person, it's where they're getting their message to and how they're getting it out there. Because obviously, as Joe Rogan himself said, everybody's getting their information from their phone. So where are you going to get that now? You can go on X like I do all the time and you get it from all sides there. But I think for the Democrats, they need to find a way to get their message out to the people that they didn't get it out to.
Misha, I see you ready to jump here.
I agree with that. I think it is more an understanding of the new ecosystem, where people are getting their media messages from. We know that a lot of it is digital, it's social media. People aren't picking up the newspaper anymore.
Did, right? They TikTok their way through the coconut summer. And
nobody cared about the coconuts. I think that it was a misreading of the electorate, but also a misreading of where people are getting their information. What Democrats have to do is figure out ways in which they can get to the podcast that their people are listening to. That means your younger voters, your people of color voters. They're getting a lot of information from things that are not, unfortunately, shows like ours right now, that are not shows of the competitors either. You have to find a way to break through that. And I think that for Democrats, largely, their investments have been in ad buys and campaigns that are focused on media that the young people, that diverse voter just aren't in anymore.
Rogan's allure is because he's authentic and he has these long, unwieldy, 3-hour conversations with heterodox thinkers, people who don't fit in the mainstream and certainly in most cases would not be given mainstream media treatment. That is interesting to a lot of people who are tired of the same old, especially from cable news. And that's why cable news ratings are dropping. You have to fit within a pretty narrow window of opinions or ideas to even be booked on a cable news program. There's no real room for a firebrand progressive, and if they do somehow get on, they probably won't get featured prominently or often. But not having people in place like that shows a deeper misunderstanding on the left and the Democratic Party about how the media operates and really has operated for years. Trump and his team knew there were huge audiences waiting for someone to talk to them, so they used shows like Joe Rogan, Theo Vaughn, and many more to reach those people And it worked. Now all these Democrats are saying, well, how do we do that? You can't just create somebody overnight like a new Joe Rogan. And you can't also put all of your hope and faith into Pod Save America. What makes shows like Joe Rogan popular is they aren't beholden to a party. Of course, Rogan endorsed Bernie in 2020, which was met with a swift rebuke from the Democratic establishment. They said it was because of things that Rogan had said in his past, and therefore that somehow is an indictment of Bernie. But really, it underscores they've known about this problem all along. They condemned Bernie because they knew Rogan was influential, that he could potentially sway the outcome of the primary. So of course, Bernie had to reject the endorsement and distance himself from Rogan. Bernie, of course, then goes on to lose the primary. We all know what happens next. And here we are 4 years later wondering, wow, how is Joe Rogan so popular?
I think Democrats need to find a message first. What is their message to voters? That I don't understand. Do they want to be the far left? Do they want to be moderate? Do they want to be, where do they want to land? I mean, it's so inauthentic to me to hear like, we need to find our own, how are we going to create somebody out of thin air? First, they need to find a message and figure out who they are.
Now going into the Trump years, the Democratic Party and organizations in its orbit are going to try to recreate the Joe Rogan or alternative media ecosystem for the left. But I think they're going to make some serious mistakes. They're going to look to some of the more successful outlets in the mainstream liberal left. Shows like Pod Save America. And if you listen to Pod Save, I don't hold anything against you. I think plenty of people like it because it gives you good updates on what's happening with a little bit of Democratic spin. But that's not the kind of show that Democrats need to continue to replicate. Content and shows and programming outside of the liberal mainstream is what people truly want. They don't need a list of Democratic talking points, and they all understand that criticism is fair. No one wants to be fed spin. If they wanted spin, they would watch MSNBC, and again, the ratings show that people are not interested in that. They know MSNBC is inauthentic, and they can't bring themselves to watch it, but part of that is because Democrats have a messaging problem, and when MSNBC is one of the more reliable megaphones for Democratic messaging, it's no surprise people aren't tuning in. We just went through a cycle that was largely framed around protecting democracy, and MSNBC has been on Trump's heels every step of the way with every new court proceeding and threat to democracy and grand existential threat to our system. It didn't resonate with voters, and we saw that. If Democrats really want to create the next Joe Rogan, it's not about finding a new personality or a show to lift up or create. It's about engaging with people who already have audiences, even if it's not the typical safe messenger you would typically go to for a press release. As a result, people would be more informed. You'd beat back some of the growing right-wing narratives that are spreading in alternative media. And when you couple that with strong economic messaging that you will deliver on, I hope, we'd all be better off.